Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sovereign AF Podcast, episode 29. I'm your host, Regina, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Cynthia.
Hey everyone.
And we have a very special guest tonight, Miss Sherri. And Sherri is the founder of Aramis Creative Learning Center, online learning for children. And she's also an author, an energy healer. She has done so much. I'm going to let her tell you more about your background, but I'm so excited to connect to Sherri and talk about so many different things. Welcome, Sherri.
Oh, thank you both so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this chat and this group and the community. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. So, Sherri, tell us a little bit more about you. Like summarize your background and
That's a long story. Okay, I'll give you the
Cliff
abbreviated
Notes.
Cliff Notes. I'm the only one that says Cliff Notes, and like, I know the younger kids today, they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "I'm so old." So I'm so glad that you just said
I'm old too.
Yep, we're
no
right
one
there
says
with
Cliff
you.
Notes anymore. Yeah, so I started professionally as an RBT, so that's like a nurse for animals. I never had any interest at all working with people ever. I was kind of like a really shy kid. I endured a lot of bullying growing up. So like I really just shut down. And I just closed myself off to humanity at a whole, I was just only going to focus my attention in life on the animal kingdom. And the reason for that is because I was an only child. Had a teen mom. And it was just the two of us, and my dad was in the picture. He's a great man, but he wasn't in my intimate life every day. I was with her, and we had some. There were boyfriends and stepdads and things like that. And so the only thing that really anchored me into the world was a dog that I had, a German Shepherd, that when I was a couple of years old, she came into our life, and I swear she was a gift from God to save me through so much of my life, like trauma that I endured. She was just my best friend. And I think that opened the door for me to connect with the animal kingdom. And thank God that I did, because it truly saved my life. And so because of that, I wanted to dedicate my life to working with animals. I was not going to work with people. I didn't like people, didn't trust people. So I went into veterinary medicine in high school with the intention of becoming a veterinarian. And I worked at a local vet hospital down the street from my house as a senior or junior in high school as a kennel tech. And immediately I was like, I do not want to work. I don't want to be a vet. I want to do what they're doing. And there was the nurses, they were drawing blood. They were assisting in surgery. Like to me, they were doing all the cool stuff. So I followed that path and I became an RBT, and I did that for 20 years. But within that period, I had a son at 23 years old. Obviously, well, not obviously, but it was unplanned. And that was my first awakening. That's when he came in, my heart was opened. Like I wasn't even prepared for that level of an awakening. He was just full of like unconditional love that I had never even felt before, even with my husband, who I love dearly. But this was a different kind of love. And I think that shifted the trajectory of my life moving forward. And each child that I had caused a subsequent more profound awakening, I think, that I was prepared for. So I was working with animals for 20 years, and then about halfway through that, I wanted to learn energy healing, because I wanted to help heal the animals in a different way, because I worked in the ICU for a long time, and I saw animals in the most critical state that you would ever want, like you don't ever want to see animals like that. And I was the one caring for them as their critical care nurse. And it was really hard for me to be in that environment. And so I wanted to learn Reiki to help heal them in other ways. And that took me on a different path of natural medicine, natural healing. And then that led me to working at the zoo. And so there's so many paths that took me in all these different directions. But it wasn't until I was working at the zoo and my daughter came, and I was channeling at that time. I was into my psychic abilities, and I was connecting with my guides. And my daughter's soul came to me about a year before I got pregnant. And at that point, I had the two boys. And she introduced me she introduced herself to me as a soul and said, I'm going to be coming into your life. And we have a big role and a big life together. Are you ready? And are you willing to do this with me? Because I'm going to need your help. She didn't tell me what the role was or what I would be doing, but it was big. Like I knew it was something really substantial, but I had zero clue of what that could be. But of course I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. And I began to channel her every week at least for almost a year before I even got pregnant. And during that period of time, I channeled messages from her that were so profound that I felt like it was training for me to learn about the world. Talk about an awakening. I learned more from her than I had ever learned up until that point from any book, any teacher, any mentor, either my parents. It was so profound, and I didn't even know who to share the information with because it was extremely like woo-woo that I didn't know, like, who can I tell this stuff to? I mean, it was profound, and I learned a lot about New Earth children. And she kept saying New Earth children. These are the children that are coming in. These are the children that are here. These are the different categories. And I was blown away by all the information. So about a year into that, I got pregnant, and then fast forward, she was born. And then my life just changed from there exponentially. I started working with people, started doing Reiki, and then it turned into soul readings. It turned into me working with galactic beings. It turned into me working with women to help them have natural births through hypnobirthing. So I was a master hypnotherapist.
Awesome.
I started working with children that were labeled. I don't like using the labels, but labeled children, autistic, ADHD, all of that. I started to attract tons of the psychic children and the parents asking for my help to help how to coach and navigate their children through such a awkward period for them because they weren't psychic. They weren't open to a lot of the things that their kids were saying. I mean, these children were telling their parents, I'm from Mars. These are the lives we've had together, like crazy stuff. And they're like, I don't know what to do with this information. So somehow they found me. And fast forward years later, I started the Aramis Creative Learning Center, which is a alternative platform of learning for children, which I believe is the future of education. And we're working to open the first physical location, which will be the first of hopefully thousands of them all over the world, to facilitate and be the catalyst for future education in general for children and humanity really of all ages. So it's a huge endeavor. And now I know that when my daughter was telling me before she was born, this is what we were going to be doing together, this is what it was. And there's no way I would have said yes back then to something like this. And I can explain why, but this is what we're here to do together. And that's why it's named after her.
So that's her name, Aramis?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Aramis is her name. And I named it after her. Yeah.
Now, does she remember talking to you before being born? Does she remember that?
She doesn't now. So when she was younger, she used to make comments about, don't let me forget, and like little things where I knew that she was still very aware, because when you're the first few years of life, you really start to you're still very multidimensional and you're not really anchored in your body yet. But this is a whole other story. But she's also a walk-in, so a reverse walk-in. So there was actually another soul in her place until she was 4 years old, until she was ready to come in. And there's a whole reason for that. I presented on it. It's in one of my books.
Wow.
So we can go into that. But so she did know, but she didn't know. It's kind of complicated.
Yeah. I mean, we can go into that if you like, but and then we can kind of get into the school if you want. I'm all about these interesting. So it wasn't her soul that was channeling with you originally up until 4.
It was her soul channeling from the beginning, but when she was born, an angelic being came into her body, or connected to her body rather, to live out the first 4 years of her life. But she was always there. She's just connected energetically, but not to her physical body that much. That way she was still very present, and she could experience her life through this other angelic being. But the reason why, and we call this a reverse walk-in, because traditionally, if you think about a walk-in, at some point in someone's life, they decide to check out for a variety of reasons, and another soul will come through and that soul leaves. But a reverse walk-in is when you plan ahead of time to have somebody come in and live a certain period of time for you, and then you come in when you're ready. And the reason that this is happening for children predominantly is because these are advanced souls that do not want to be children. They don't want to be babies. They don't want to go through those stages because it's very uncomfortable. It's very dense and very restricting. And they don't want to have that experience. They've already done it many times. They're like, I don't want it. So they'll choose an angelic soul generally because they are very anchored to this, this domain because of the people that they're connected with, and they are very experienced at it. So they'll come in and ride the wave and go through the beginning stages that they don't want to go through for them. And then when the soul's ready, they'll come through and then they can skip all of that.
Wow.
So how do you know how do you know and all this? And does your daughter know that she's a walk-in?
So she does not. So
Okay.
she's 9 now, going on 25, and she's having a human experience right now, and I'm respecting that. And so I don't push anything on her, and I don't say too much. And when the time is right, I will communicate more with her about these things. But right now, she's a 9-year-old that crushes on boys and wants to wear makeup and is like a preteen girl, and she's kind of like mom, but I know that like I'm letting her have this experience right now, but she's very interested in what I do and all of these things. So the reason I know about it is because when she came in, she was a beautiful energy. I mean, people that met her were like immediately felt just healed, connected, and they were like, this is like an angelic soul. I didn't put it together back then. She was just extraordinary. And she was that way. She was easygoing, just smiled all the time, just amazing. And then 4 years old, she had to have a tonsillectomy because she couldn't breathe. Her adenoids and tonsils were so inflamed. She was apneic, and she needed to have it. So when she got out of the surgery, within, I'm talking days, it was a different person. Everybody noticed her personality abruptly changed. Even her demeanor, her face slowly started to shift. And within 3 months, it was like, who is this? I literally was like, who is this soul here? Like, what happened to you? And I didn't put it together because I needed to have that human experience, I think, and figure it out on my own, because it was part of my lesson. Because I've now helped so many other parents figure it out, and I needed to go through that in order to be able to really connect with that. But she just 180 personality. She became very strong-willed, difficult, wouldn't take no for an answer, and just completely opposite. And one day I just was literally like crying, and I said, I surrender. Please tell me who this soul is and what happened to my angel. Like I literally was like at my wit's end. And my guides came through and they said, Sherri, she's a walk-in, and it's a really long story. I don't want to monopolize too much of the time, but they told me, but I kind of figured it out. And I wrote about it in the book in more detail, but I figured it out. They confirmed it. And I said, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And then that's when I learned about reverse walk-ins. They explained it to me and why. But no, she doesn't know that she's a walk-in.
I wonder if she'll remember over time, like if the veil will get thinner. For me, it started off thin and the veil, and then it got thick. Like I couldn't see through the veil, and now it's thinning again. So I wonder if that'll happen for her.
Possibly. I would bet that the answer to that is yes, but who knows?
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that
Hello,
you said
everyone.
you expect that she's having that human experience right now too. I resonate so deeply with that with my daughter, because it's like she was very into the things that I do, and then more recently, she's 14. She's in it right now, and I respect that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you don't want to push it on them, because I'm letting her just because who am I to know whether or not these experiences that she's having right now and the things that she's doing are not for a purpose, and she's learning something valuable for later. So I'm like, well, I can't push all my crystals and things on her, but it's around her a lot, and it's seeping through somehow, and then I let her come to me if she wants it. It's there, and that's all. And same with my boys. You know, my boys, when they were both of them were young, they were into everything I did. My son even saw Archangel Michael would tell me what he would say to him. He was more psychic than I was. I was like, man. And then he lost it. And now he says, I don't believe in God. And I say, okay, I don't judge. And this is your experience. And I let him be who he is. And I don't argue with him and I don't tell him he's wrong. And then my middle, he's a star child. So they're not really here to be spiritual. They're here to be like change makers and like very intellectual and teach people through that. So I did, Chris, so I am at my daughter's homeschool pod. I used to go there and teach every couple of weeks. I would teach something, a class, generally metaphysical. So sound healing, crystal gridding, things like that. And one day I'm in the class and I'm teaching about crystal grids and what the crystals mean and your intention and how you can position them. And my son is in that particular class that day, or in that group that he was in, because there was 3 different groups. He just looks at me in front of everybody. He goes, Mom, I don't really believe in I don't even believe any of this. Can I go? And I said, yes, Skylar, go ahead. I didn't even say anything. I was like, go ahead, go. Because he wanted to go learn something. He wanted to go in and do some math. And I said, yeah. And I didn't even, like, I wasn't embarrassed. I even laughed. I was like, and I respect that. It's his choice. I don't make anybody believe anything. I thought it was so funny.
You have to, right? I know. I was just telling Aiden the other day, I was like, do you know that when you were 3, you were in the back seat and all of a sudden she was like, Mommy, what if everything's just a dream? What if we're just in a dream here? And I was like, interesting. You're probably right. And I was telling her that the other day. She's like, I didn't say that.
I didn't say that. Yeah.
Say that. You're right. It was funny.
That's so cool. And it shows how evolved you are, Sherri, to just let them be. I mean, it's in our human nature to want to control and change and heal and fix, right? And that's how evolved you are, to just let them be. I love that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Aramis and how that came about and all the cool stuff that you're doing. And
yeah. So that's a cool story too. So during the I guess we got to be careful with our words. During the pandemic period, everybody was going through a lot, and I had a wellness center back then in Bethesda, Maryland, where I lived, and I did predominantly energy healing and soul readings and classes. I taught a lot of classes and did spirit circle type of groups and all sorts of cool stuff. And it was during that period where I had this overwhelming sense of, I want to open a metaphysical center up for children to teach them the classes that I'm teaching the adults, like, Reiki, healing and pendulums and tarot cards and channeling and grounding and tapping and like all the things I was teaching. I was like, kids, I want to teach the children this. And my idea was I was going to open up a metaphysical center for children that I started in there, but then it was going to be like, how like Sunday school, you kids go and they learn, they study the Bible or whatever. I don't know. I've never been to Sunday school, but the point is I wanted to have something like that for children, for the spiritual community to come in and learn. And I was like, how beautiful would that be? A beautiful center with trees outside, and we could be outside and grounding and working with crystals and garden, all this stuff. That was my vision. And I called it Divinely Guided Children because in my sessions a lot, when I was working with children and parents, I kept hearing divinely guided over and over and over again. Then I learned about divine children. And I was like, there's something to this word divine. So I was like, I'm going to call it Divinely Guided Children. And that's my metaphysical center. And so during that period, I had this idea. That's when the pandemic occurred and children were out of school. And I set up a classroom in the side of my house where my office was, and I was there present for every class, everything. I was very hands-on, and my kids had their little virtual setup, and I would write them little notes, and I would overhear everything. And I had a big problem with what I was hearing, how they were being taught, how behind they were getting, the issues that were coming up, the developmental delays. I mean, I saw it all, and I was like, hold on a second, because I'm like here, there, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, wait a second, what? And I really started to pay more attention, more than I ever had before. So then I started to think, okay, let me offer these classes, but maybe like there's something bigger to this. I'm fast forwarding through a lot because this is over like years. And I had this epiphany where I was like, this is what I was supposed to do. This is what Aramis and I are to do together. And the reason why I'm saying that is because since she was 3 years old and went to preschool or whatever it's called, she came home the first day and said, as a 3-year-old with integrity and like tenacity, I'm going to be a teacher one day. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, good, awesome. But she's like, no, I'm serious, mom. And I'm like, all right, good. And every single day she taught, and she would come home and with her invisible class, which I thought, but who knows, there were probably beings there. She would act like she would play the role of the teacher and do the lessons that teacher did that day. She had a whiteboard. At first she would scribble on it. Then she learned to write. Then she started doing math problems. Then she turned her room into a classroom. And I was like, this girl is serious about this. Like it's in her soul to be a teacher. So all this is happening at the same time. I'm getting goosebumps just remembering all this. I said, oh my gosh, that is what she's here to do. And I'm thinking I'm opening up a metaphysical center because that's right up my alley. But this is all coming together. And what I realize is this is for her. This is her legacy. And I'm here to help her pioneer this movement of alternative new education based on what I was seeing and all the issues that I was seeing, that was the indoctrination and all the things that I lecture about. And so I went from Divinely Guided Children Metaphysical Center to Aramis Creative Learning Center. And I named it after her because I said, I even said to her soul energetically, I said, this is for you, Aramis. And I said, now I understand what you came in to do and what you needed my help with. And I said, I won't let you down. And it just opened up so much, like it just exploded. And I started doing interviews on podcasts, and it just went crazy. And I thought about opening up a center in Maryland where I was, but it wasn't the right place because nobody wanted it there. It was very, you know what the DC area is like, and they weren't open to the spiritual side and anything alternative. They were like, no, indoctrination, wear your mask, keep your mouth shut, do this. And I was like, I'm not in the right place for this. So I said, I'm just going to do a virtual platform. So any children all over the world have the ability to take these classes. And we're going on year 4 now. And we have had some of the most incredible mentors teaching things that, the roster of classes, if I look back on my Instagram or the Aramis Instagram page, I'm like, oh my God, like we have taught hundreds of the most incredible content I've ever seen and continue to. And my vision in the future is to open up the first physical center here, which will bring in more academics, but in the method in which I feel is more appropriate for children and where we're going. And then it will just grow to potentially being in every state and internationally. And Aramis will become a legacy, not in an egotistical way, but it's an ideal. It's a philosophy of unity and children coming first and the future. Like she's here to be a pioneer of a movement for the future generations. And that's why we're together. So it kind of shifts and it shifts. What's the word I'm trying to think of? It's gradual and it keeps changing as we go. And I never know what to expect. Who knows what's going to happen next? I have no idea.
That's awesome. I love it. And I love how it's kind of shifting on its own. So Phoebe asked, where is here? I guess.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. We were talking ahead of time before we hit record. So I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida. So the reason that I chose Florida, in case people watching are like, why'd you choose Florida? So back when I started getting a following of supporters, I don't like using the word followers, when people started really backing me on what I'm doing, I started getting emails from people all over the world. All over the world. When are you going to have a center like that here? And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a need for this. Then I started to get invited on interview after interview. It was crazy. And I put out a survey years ago, and I said, if I were to open up the first center, let's take a poll and see where you guys want it to be. Where should I open the first couple? And I had thousands of people respond, and there was a lot of international requests. Canada and Australia were the main two. But in the United States, the top 3 were Florida, Texas, Colorado, then it was California, and then it was like Wisconsin, not Wisconsin, I'm sorry, Washington, North Carolina, a couple other places, but Florida was like clearly number one. So I looked at my husband, I said, we're moving to Florida. Luckily, it was a state that I was interested in moving to, because I love the ocean. And we chose West Palm Beach for a lot of reasons. But the main reason is it's close enough to the ocean, but it's rural enough. We can go inland enough to have horses and lots of land, but still be close to the ocean, because the ocean to me is really important. And I want to integrate the ocean classes and have the children be close to the ocean, but still be in like the rural areas. And like, it's the best of both worlds here, because you really have both. So that's why I'm here. This will be the first one, and somewhere in this vicinity within the county, which is quite large.
Awesome. Can you tell us about some of the classes? What are some of the topics that you have? Let's dive into that.
Well, the esoteric and metaphysical nature of the classes are going to be the obvious ones. So crystals, crystal clearing, crystal healing, crystal gridding, meditation. There are like real esoteric ones that are like remote viewing, extraterrestrial civilizations. I have a lot of mentors that kind of use their areas of expertise, and then they teach what they're good at, what they know. We have astrology. We have a lot of classes on energy healing, managing emotions. Gosh, you name it. I mean, I can't, like, there are just like so many things. Connecting with nature, spirit animals, even intro to tarot, automatic writing, journaling, creative writing, mindful math, spiritual sciences, different variations of that, dream journaling, interpretation of dreams. I mean, I can't even like remember. It's like hundreds of classes that we've taught. And it's just so it's mainly metaphysical and esoteric centered right now, because that's what people are. I feel like that's what children are missing that in school. So I don't need to teach you math. Let me teach you what you're not learning. And when we open up our physical school, we'll obviously focus more on many other elements. But for right now, it's really been those type of topics, because children need to have a space that's safe to explore their spiritual gifts, their psychic abilities. We also have had teen groups and parent support groups and Starseed groups and meetups and all of these things, so that children can find each other that are like-minded, because I can't tell you how many children I work with every month that are feeling so alone and so different than everybody else. And like, I'm the only person they trust in the world. And that's really sad. I mean, I'm honored, but I'm like, oh, I feel so deeply for all of these children that I wish I could just put them together, but they're spread out everywhere. And I keep trying to remind everybody, just like adults, many of us are spread out.
I was just going to say, I'm feeling that. That's why I'm moving to Tennessee, is we are too spread out. I need a couple of my people near me.
Yeah. I mean, imagine being a child and not resonating with anybody or anything, or feeling like you don't belong, or seeing like having extreme psychic abilities and no one else around you has them. And they're extremely like disconcerted, dissociated. And it's just heartbreaking for me. So I work tirelessly to try to help them, but also help this movement move faster, so we can provide the communities. And it's not just about Aramis Creative Learning Center. I'm not trying to monopolize the market. I have been very honest since the first interview I've ever done about this. I'm not trying to take over education. I'm trying to inspire other parents first to wake up and recognize that there are other options, and there are things that you can do, and you don't have to go to the public school system, and create your own. I am honored to say that I have had dozens of people reach out to me over the years and say, because of you, we opened our own homeschool pod. Because of you, we started a community. Because of you, we did this, we did that. And I'm like, that's amazing. It just takes just the energy to vibrate out, to encourage all of us to that's how we make change. It can't just be one person. So I hope that people hear these things and get inspired and say, well, I want that for my child. I'm not waiting for you. I'm going to do something for my child now. brilliant. That's what we
Mhm.
need. That's what we need. We need like to ignite the fire within all of us to make some sort of a change. So that's why I speak so passionately about this, because I'm like, let's do this together in your own community, but also we work together energetically because we're all connected.
I love that. So we've
Yeah.
got a few questions in there. Gia said, what's the name of the online school? Maybe she came in late. Aramis Creative Learning Center, right?
Right. It's aramiscreativelearning.com. Now,
Okay.
this is really bad timing, unfortunately, for this interview, because I am giving the mentors a little bit of a break. So if you go online, there are no classes being offered right now, probably for the next 2 months, just because we take a break probably once a year. But generally, there are about 10 to 15 classes per month. So it's really extracurricular. This is not a full-time thing. So it's supplemental. So not only do we have homeschool children that take advantage of our classes mainly, but we also have public school children that these kids love to take these classes on the weekend because it's something they actually want to learn about. So they're generally on the weekends, mornings, sometimes in the evenings, to accommodate everybody. And so it's kind of an a la carte thing. It's like you see something you want to take, you take it. There's no commitment. It's not a membership. It's just, these are the classes that we're offering this month, and next month it could look completely different. And then there are some classes that are offered every single month because certain mentors like to do the same thing repeatedly.
So cool.
And someone asked what ages?
The ages are anywhere from 5 to teen, and then we even have adult classes or family style classes. But the youngest we try to do is, I say 5, but really 6, 7. And the reason for that is it is really challenging to entertain or engage through Zoom. And it's not my first choice. I don't actually like teaching through Zoom, especially with children. They're very tactile. They need to get up. They need to be enriched through their environment. So it's really not ideal to have these classes for the younger ones through Zoom, but we offer them still because I don't want to exclude them from having that experience.
And then Ellen asked, I'm assuming you do not teach all the classes. What is your process in determining a class offering and then finding a teacher? Or is it the teacher shows up and the class follows?
That is a really good question, and there isn't one answer for it. Generally, I taught all the classes in the beginning, and then I realized I can't do it all. So then I started to hire teachers, and I kind of did an outreach calling in teachers. And I had like my main few in the beginning, and we did it in person in my wellness center in the beginning, a little bit, but because of the mask situation and these things, it was a nightmare. So we just said, you know what, we'll just go all online, because nobody in my area felt comfortable doing in person with their children. So I started with a few mentors, and they would tell me what their specialty was, and then we would create classes. And so I'm a collaborator. So what I do is I have my mentors tell me every month what they want to teach, and they come up with their own ideas. And then I'll put feelers out there where I'll say, next month I really want to teach, I want to offer this style. Who can do that? And then they'll answer and say, oh, I'll do it. I like that. And we kind of work together. And so every once in a while, like 2, 3 times a year, I'll put a calling out for new mentors just to have new energy and to mix it up. And then when I'm interviewing those mentors, I see what their interests are in teaching. And then we kind of gravitate to there on what we want to offer. So it's really more of a collaboration. It's kind of a little bit of both.
That's
So
really
awesome.
cool.
I'll
I
have to
love
reach
that.
out to you, Sherri. I actually think I mentioned this before, but when I first saw you speak, I think it was on Journey to Truth, and you just gave me chills, like just hearing the story from beginning till now. And I work with children too. I'm a hypnotherapist and work with dancers and kids, and I love working with them. So we'll have to connect more
Yeah,
too.
let's
That's
talk.
really cool.
Let's talk. Yeah. I'm always
Yeah,
looking to expand and grow, so we're always looking for more, but sometimes I'll get hundreds of applications and I'm like, thank you so much. But
wow.
like, oh my gosh, how do I
That's
do that?
incredible,
Like,
though.
how do I
Wow.
That's a lot.
choose?
Yeah.
I know it's overwhelming, but in a good way. Like I'm so
Mhm.
my heart is filled with gratitude that many people are ready and willing to participate in something like this. They're ready for the change. But we can only have so many at a time. And sometimes we rotate, and some will do it for like a couple of months, and then they're busy and they have their own job. Like they're like they can't do it. And then I'll get some new. And so it's kind of like it's just a organic
kind of
system.
flows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's multiple reasons why we connected for sure. Me being a former elementary school teacher and a certified life coach for kids and teens. And I used to run girls groups and all types of cool stuff. So I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I
Yeah.
can't wait to see it flourish, and I want to help you
Thank you.
get out there more for sure. Let's see. There's no more questions. Yeah, Cynthia and I saw a class and we were like, we want to take it. It was it the what was it called? The writing, the automatic writing, I think.
Yes.
That one's for adults.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you say that. I didn't know you were referring to that class, but I can't tell you how many times I've posted a class for children, like ages 7 to 10 or whatever. And I'll get like a list of messages. Can I take the class? An adult. And I'm like, no, because there's safety issues and it has to be children only and maybe their parents. But I can't have like random adults in these classes. But I realize, man, adults really are craving this information too. So that's why we started doing adjacent adult. So we'll do people will see, like, we'll teach a crystal class and then the exact same one, but this one says for adults. Because you got to cater the content and how you teach different for children than adults. But we started doing that more because so many adults were looking for the same content. You know, they want to learn too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had to learn on our own. We had to dig for this information. Like I shared with you, Sherri, when I was like first learned to read and I was obsessed with learning about ESP.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, reading random weird stuff. And my mom's watching, and I want to thank you, Mom, for letting me be that weird kid that was trying to move objects with my mind and trying to send telepathic messages. And we'd be driving and I'm trying to change the lights, and my mom would play along. I have to say, like, in that respect, you were absolutely the best, Mom. I love you. Just letting me be that weird kid. And then I think it was around like 7 or so when I'm like, oh, other kids aren't doing this. And, I guess dragons and unicorns aren't real here. So let me try to be normal, or at least normal enough to have friends. I mean, I'm still weird. I'm the weirdest in my high school friend group. I mean, by far, but I learned how to be human enough to be, likable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just said something really important, and it is funny, but it's not funny. Like 6, 7 years old is the pivotal marking period in which the multidimensional aspect of the soul decides and makes a choice to anchor into the physical body. And there's no accident that kindergarten, at least in the United States, the indoctrination starts at 5 to 6 years old. So they could get in there right around the most important and vital period of the child's development, but also spiritual development. And so around 6 and 7 years old is when you'll start to see a child change for that exact reason. They become aware of their surroundings and they start to see, well, no one else is seeing unicorns and dragons, and they get embarrassed. They have an acute awareness, and then they get embarrassed and they say, well, I don't want to be the weirdo kid. I want to fit in. And they start to morph and change themselves so that they can adapt and integrate into the human experience. And that's what happened to my son. At 5, 6 years old, he was seeing Archangel Michael, having conversations with him, psychic. He had his own little box with tarot cards and crystals and pendulums and all sorts of stuff. And it was incredible. I was like, oh my God, he's going to be my buddy for life doing this stuff. And then sure enough, he goes into, and then I think it was first grade, and he started to, the crystals started to pile up in the corner with dust, and like stuff would be thrown on top. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And he's like, oh, Mom. And then it was like, it was gone. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm thinking, what did I do wrong? But it wasn't me. It was just, I had to see that he was becoming more humanized and he needed to adapt, and he closed it's a conscious choice actually to close that ability off. It's crazy that how that happens, and the timing of the schooling is not an accident, because they want to hook these children in at the most important time before they can kind of go from one direction to the other.
That's really interesting. And we were talking about that when we had Jackie on, how she said, I think it was like age 7, and that just aligns with me a lot. Oh, I lost Cynthia somehow. She'll
Hopefully she
pop
comes
back
back.
in. She'll pop back in. But yeah, that aligns with me a lot. And because I've always known as an adult that I'm way more psychic than this. And I was getting really frustrated. Like, I've always been claircognizant and clairsentient, but I'm like, where's the clairvoyance at? I know I can see. And I know that I blocked it out of fear. And so I've been on this journey to opening it up, and it's been pretty wild journey, like not fully under control, just kind of like, it's kind of like driving a fast car, like, ooh, oh my gosh, here it is out of nowhere.
Right.
Okay. Someone said, what is the name of your, and we'll give all of her info at the end as well, but what is the name? I think you've written multiple books. They said, what is the name of your book?
Well, my first book was Intuitive Transformation Evolution. Then I wrote Divinely Guided. And then my book that came out last year that they're probably talking about because it's the most popular one right now because it's so relevant for today is called Starseeds and the Great Awakening. And the sequel to that is called Courage to Change the Freedom Movement. And that's coming out next month. And I am so excited for that to come out. And then I also have 9 children's books called Divinely Guided Children. And then each book has like a message, like, you know, Aramis and the Spiritual Toolbox, or Ascension, or Mindfulness and Superpowers. And those are children's books really geared towards like 3 to 8 or 9 years old, you know, in that younger age, picture books, and with positive messages about, so children can learn the things that I feel like they should learn at a young age, but introducing them in a book. And a lot of people don't know this, but about 3 years ago, we started the Divinely Guided animation cartoon series. And so we have like 19 episodes of a cartoon out called Divinely Guided Children on YouTube for the exact same reason. Actually, we did that first and then started the books after that to model the cartoons. So fun fact. We also have a what's it called? Oh my gosh, we have it's late. I'm tired. We have a nonprofit called the Aramis Collective, and I started that about 3 years ago as well, to fundraise and to raise awareness and to raise money to support a lot of the things that we're doing. Because the education platform that I'm trying to create, the one in person, I want it to be free. So whether we need to do a nonprofit route or we get out of this monetary system and it's just humanitarian funded through humanitarian funds, that I don't know how to say that right. So anyways, we have the nonprofit to support a lot of the work that we do, called the Aramis Collective, which a lot of people don't know about that either.
I love that. There's so many things going on in my head. She's about to pop on any second. Okay. I hear you, but I don't see you.
I know. I don't know what's happening. Let me see.
Oh,
lately, I'm just rolling.
I have a few. I just didn't realize. So I have this book right here. This is Starseeds and the Great Awakening. I have these out to take the journey of the truth. They're right next to me. And then here's like a couple of I have these out to pass out to people. This one is Skylar and Greek mythology. And then there's like this one that says Aramis and the Spiritual Toolbox. And anyways, there's a ton of them. So that's,
I love that. I'm so bummed that I'm not going to be there. I really, really want to be there, but it's the worst timing. I'm moving across the country, transitioning careers, wrapping up the last season of the podcast. I'm overwhelmed, and there's just like no way I can get there, but I'll be watching online. You there, Sin?
I'm here. I don't know what's happening. My internet just like all of a sudden was like, sorry, you don't have internet right now.
My mom can hear you.
Yeah, my mom said, when you find Cynthia, tell her she is looking fabulous.
Oh, she's so cute.
Miriam said, I would like a bit more information regarding starting my own nonprofit. Any tips on that, I guess?
I do have one tip. So I'm only saying this because I had no idea. But when I was looking to start a nonprofit, somebody came to me and suggested that I create a nonprofit that's under a faith-based organization, which is sounds like you're opening up a church, but what they didn't. So I was like, no, this isn't a church. But when I researched it more, it's really anything in an umbrella of spiritual nature. So it could be spiritual centers, resource centers, and churches, and that's what a lot of churches operate under. And the taxes are different, and it is 10 times easier to open a nonprofit under that. It's what is it? 50.
It's not a 501c. It's like is it like a 509 or something?
No, 508. Oh, I'm terrible with these things. If you look up faith-based organization, nonprofit, it's like 508c31 or something. I don't know. Anyways, it's cheap. It's the cheapest way to do it. It's the fastest way. And it is I can't believe, I'm so glad that somebody told me about that. Yeah. So that's my recommendation, is to do something like that, because it's way easier, cheaper, and easier to upkeep.
It's a great tip. I actually was thinking about doing the straw man guy who came on the podcast. He has a religious organization. He's not religious. And he was telling me how it's better than a nonprofit. So I was thinking about
508 something, 508c3.
That was like 508 or 509. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's a really good tip. Awesome. So Cynthia's muted. Oh, I can't see her. And I kind of want to ask you, this is like off in left field a little bit, but about what we were talking about before we hopped on here. And I guess it kind of ties in, because you're talking about healing the lineage, like the family lineage, right? And you work with kids and parents. So I guess I'll just share this.
I got you. So I'll just jump in through ancestral healing. So one of the things that I'm working on a lot with my clients, because I work a lot with adults too. So I do most of my week is taken up by working one-on-one with people to help coach them through soul readings, but really just kind of figure out their path. There's some past life traumas, and like it's a whole thing. And what I have noticed over the last few years is there's a large amount of people participating in some level of ancestral healing. And what I learned in the last, hey, welcome back.
Yay.
We're back in business. Okay, go on.
Diving into ancestral healing real quick.
So in my last book, Starseeds and the Great Awakening, I have a whole section on that. But it was limited to what I knew at the time, because I only write books about things that I've learned through my sessions. I don't research. I'm terrible at that. I could care less. Plus, you never know half the stuff you research if it's true anyways. So everything I write about and talk about, I either downloaded myself, got it through my daughter, or through my sessions. So I talked about in that book through the sessions that I was having about ancestral healing. But it was after I wrote the book in this past year where I have learned so much more through my clients. And what I've been told is that there are people that are participating more in ancestral healing than others, and they are using their bodies as conduits to facilitate a very huge process of purging, healing, transmuting, and it's this cycle. So let's say Regina is volunteered to come in and be part of a long line of ancestral healing of the divine feminine, and she's going to use her womb, let's say, to facilitate ancestral womb trauma. There's lots of different kinds, but we're focusing on that right now. So that means that at some point during Regina's life, her womb is primed on an energetic blueprint level, on an etherical blueprint, to trigger the ancestral healing. It could happen anytime. You could have chosen to have that occur at your first menstrual cycle, your whole entire life, or it could be postmenopausal, or it could be right in the middle of your life. It's all planned based on a lot of factors and variables that are too numerous to explain right now. But let's say in the middle of Regina's life, this is when this is going to happen. And all of a sudden the cells in your womb activate, and now they're going to facilitate the process of activating and calling in, because it's quantum energy, calling in all the womb trauma from your ancestors that you've agreed to help. And now the cells become alive within your uterus, and it starts to the process of purging. And so you might have acute bleeding or cramping or menstrual periods like you have never seen before, pain, nausea, and it's almost inflamed and activated. The sacral chakra opens up, and there's a huge amount of energy flowing through, and your body is agreeing to be the conduit of healing thousands of ancestors. I'm talking, this is not hundreds, this is thousands. Wow. Because it's not just about your lineage of like your mom, grandma, and etc. This is on a soul level, who you're connected with, who are they connected to for thousands of years. And so you are one of many. It's not just you, many of you that have chosen within this lifetime to do the same thing. And your uterus starts to purge, and it starts to release. And it can be really disconcerting and scary, because I have had women that have had such severe purging that their uterus became so infiltrated with the density of that toxic energy, they've actually had to have a hysterectomy. And that's the severe end of it, where you ultimately take it all in and you agree ahead of time. This is agreed ahead of time. I'm going to take it all in, and then we'll remove it. And then the taking of that organ out of the body symbolizes the cessation or the stopping. It's now stopped. It will not continue to move.
Wow.
It doesn't have to be that severe though. I don't want to scare everybody watching.
I hope not.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's very rare. Okay. Like less than 0.5% of the population, or lesser than that, 0.1%. Yeah. But what's most common in this example is heavy menstrual periods and cramps, because the body has to purge. What I have also seen are the people that didn't sign up for the organ removal, but their body is trying to compensate for all that extra energy. And next thing you know, they're going to the bathroom a lot more, like their urination, they have excessive urination. Now the bladder's compensating for the womb. So now you're peeing all the time. And I'm sure there's a medical term for that. I can't think of it right now. And I worked in the ICU for 10 years, but I can't think of it. But you now the bladder is now compensating to help, and like it's crazy all the things that are happening. So this can be the same for men trauma in the prostate, or lungs, for heartache and abuse and neglect and abandonment. So we can use our bodies as conduits to facilitate ancestral healing in a very profound way. But it's very disconcerting and scary to us when we have these acute symptoms that sometimes can be quite severe, that it's actually part of your destiny, is part of your plan. So I just want to say two things really quickly. I'm not telling people not to go to the doctor, get checked, but a lot of times they're going to find nothing. And if that's the case, this is likely you. But what I would say is, instead of living in fear, this is how I coach all of my clients. I say the same thing, and we work through it together, that when I realize that this is what they're doing, stop and shift your entire mindset to say, okay, I understand now, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm going to lean into it. And I'm so grateful that I have allowed my body to be a conduit of this level of healing in this life for myself and my ancestors. And I will no longer resist, because the problem is when you're in fear and you're like, oh my God, I'm scared. What's happening to me? I'm in trauma mode. Your body goes into fight or flight. You switch into sympathetic mode. Now your body tenses, and now your poor uterus has to work twice as hard. And that's why the bladder has to compensate, or something else has to compensate, because you're putting so much pressure. So if you take off the pressure and say, I understand, now I'm going to help my body. I know what's happening, and I'm going to help by breathing and creating affirmations and doing everything I can to support it. So then you're in parasympathetic mode as opposed to sympathetic mode. And now your uterus can do what it needs to do. And I can guarantee you it won't be as severe, because now you're helping instead of hindering. So it's really important right now for a lot of women and men, because there's other variations of this, to understand that that could be potentially what's happening with your acute or chronic illness.
Yeah, I was getting chills the whole time.
Me
I'm not
too.
gonna.
I was too.
Yeah, I mean, yep. You can lump me in that category, and then I'm not gonna go into details, but purging makes sense because there's other symptoms that I wouldn't normally equate to that that are occurring, and so, and I can't say that I'm in fear about it. It's more like just like pain,
Pain.
just more
Yeah.
like
Discomfort.
frustration and like yeah, just like frustration, like, man, again, this is happening again. But now to shift my viewpoint of like, wow, I'm actually able to heal so much. That's amazing. You know, I'm gonna think of it in that way and do some spiritual and energetic work on that. And it's actually exciting. But yeah, of course I signed up for that. I signed up for so many things. My higher self, my higher self is like insane with the stuff that I signed up for in this lifetime.
I feel like all of us feel that way.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Totally.
I always say jokingly, like, you'll see a Lifetime movie. And like, as people get to know me more and they learn more about my life and my, just this lifetime, what's happened that I've gone through, they're like, what? You know, like, you never told me that. And I'm like, oh yeah, you'll see the Lifetime movie. But, I think that's normal for our type souls. You know, we came here to evolve as much as possible and help the collective as much as possible, you know, and
Yeah.
more pain, trauma, and uncomfortable situations helps us evolve, right? If it's all
Yeah.
sunshine and roses, are we evolving, right?
I
Right.
mean, I think it's very empowering and humbling and exciting all at the same time to recognize that I'm not only healing myself, I'm enduring this pain, this disease, this suffering
Yeah.
for such a big purpose that's bigger than me, that sometimes it makes you feel honored. Now, I'm not saying you're going to sit and be like, I'm so honored for this pain, but it really helps the mindset shift where you feel like there's such like a bigger purpose for it. And how amazing is that you can go through one thing, but it heals thousands of souls that are no longer here, but you help their soul heal from the trauma that they endured here many lifetimes ago, sometimes hundreds, thousands of years ago. It's so cool.
Love that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's so powerful. I love that. So Sherri, we're at the 1 hour mark, and I know that it's getting late for you. I'm gonna have to adjust when I get into Eastern. That's late for me.
Hey, I'm the first one in my house to go to bed at like 9 o'clock. Mom's like, peace out, everybody. I'm going upstairs, like getting in my bed.
Sarah says, beautiful. Yes, we're able to heal generational patterns before us and after us. I just didn't recognize that it was through like menstrual pain. You know, it's amazing how I don't always bring these things to the energetic and spiritual level, but of course, many other things as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I want to honor your time, and it's late where you are because we can hang out all night. And I know Cynthia actually has to go soon.
We'll have to do a part 2 then.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
you can come on whenever you want, Sherri.
Oh.
Absolutely.
And we'll definitely
There's so much
stay in
to
touch.
talk about. We have to do it again.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
stay in touch because I think there's a lot of avenues that we can work together, that I can hopefully help you and just help your mission and stuff. So we'll definitely stay connected on all that. So anything else before we kind of wrap up, Sin? Do you want to just check in?
No, I mean, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm on my phone.
Oh man.
No, I mean, just so excited to have you here and hear you speak about it. Like, it still gives me chills and what you're doing and what you've committed to and are creating. And I can't wait to see your centers everywhere because I have a feeling they're going to be. I do.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Thank you.
The children need it. Like, they're our future, right? And honestly, they're here teaching us so much more. I learned so much from Aiden still. She's here now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell
Hi,
her that.
Aiden.
Yeah. So still, like,
I mean, they're our
to this
biggest
day,
teachers. They really
they
are.
Yeah.
really are.
But generations before us were so programmed to believe that like we're here to teach them. And it was the most humbling moment when my daughter came in and I realized, oh wow, they're here to teach me. And I looked and I changed everything, how I looked at parenting my children. And now it took some adjustment, especially during some difficult times. But now I let them lead a lot of the time. And I tell them, I mean, you've taught me so much. And I thank them all the time. I say, thank you so much for teaching me that. Like, I would have never learned that from somebody else, you know? I mean, you never can say never, but they are our biggest teachers. And you don't have to be a mom or a dad to learn from children. Aunties,
Absolutely.
just being in their presence. I mean, there's so many ways. You don't have to have your own children to have that experience. They're here to affect the world in such a more profound way than just their parents. It's everybody.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's very important, Sherri, because I don't have kids, but I've always been really passionate about children, being a former teacher. And there's so many things. I used to be a life coach for kids and teens. There's so many things that I don't know. I feel connected. So maybe there is, I don't know. I'm still uncovering my true purpose, and we'll see what happens with that. But maybe it is connected to children in some way. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
And Sarah says, I would love to connect. Hit up Sherri. I'm going to have you give all the ways to connect. And Ellen said, I would love a part 2. Let's wrap up the recording. We can hang out just for a couple moments. If there's any last minute questions, drop them in the chat. But Sherri, let us know where everyone can find you and anything else that you want to promote.
My main website is sherridivban.com, and that's where you can like book soul readings with me, and the classes that I teach that aren't through Aramis are on that website. And I have newsletters and I advertise where I'm going to be. I have 3 speaking events coming up, one in Grafton, Illinois, one in Deltona, Florida, and then another one in St. Pete coming in July. So I have a couple engagements coming up. So I keep people updated through there. I do have a special right now that expires in like 2 days. If you want a soul reading with me, I'm offering a follow-up for free. So it's kind of buy one, get one, but this follow-up is a little bit less time than the original. I offer that like twice a year. So as far as Aramis Creative Learning, it's aramiscreativelearning.com. And you can learn about what we do and our mission. And I have a lot of information and resources on that website, but we're just not offering any courses right now. We're giving the mentors a break. The Aramis Collective is the aramiscollective.com. And all my books are on Amazon. And the Starseeds and the Great Awakening is also on Barnes and Noble, but not the rest. I just haven't uploaded it yet. So, and I have my own YouTube channel under my name and Instagram and all that other stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. We're going to put all that info in the chat, and I'll put it up on YouTube and Rumble as well, so you can easily find Sherri. Thank you so much. We'll hang out just for a quick moment after I end the recording. And thank you guys for your support, everyone that's watching live, everyone that is in the Facebook group. Join the Facebook group so we can chat further, and we'll figure out how to get going live there again soon. Next week we are going to dive into homesteading, and actually Steph teaches you how to start homesteading even if you live in an apartment. So she's going to go dive into from the basics to the advanced. She has a course and all types of cool stuff. So I'm excited to dive into that topic, and it's actually not going to be Tuesday. It's going to be Friday the 17th. And I think we're doing it in the morning, right? 10, I forget what time. 12 p.m. Central, I want to say 10 Pacific, but we'll update you everywhere. Thank you guys. Please like and subscribe YouTube, Rumble, follow us on Instagram, join the Facebook group. We love you guys. Thank you for your support, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.